We have the mayor of Lubbock. Hey, how you doing there, Dan? How are you doing?
Good morning, Carl. It's good to be here.
Yeah, the mayor of Lubbock, Dan Pope. I had to give city council an odd kudos. I hate to do that for politicians.
I know you do, Carl, but we appreciate it. Talk about it.
It was all the incredible road work being done around town. It was needed. I think it was hard to anticipate how bad our roads would get because we have so much more traffic now. But it seems within hours, y'all decided to get going, or maybe the previous council, but nice job on the road work. I think it's needed and it's going really well.
Well, thank you for, I'll start that we'll always accept compliments. Some of it's our work, some of it's TxDOT's work. Certainly we needed it to be done. Particularly the TxDOT work around the loop was really needed. It was probably one of those top 5 things I heard from citizens about.
And so underneath the loop, those intersections below Indiana Avenue, those are actually TxDOT.
That's right. That's the service roads, the intersections, the turnarounds, those are all TxDOT. So we're doing those are all getting done this summer, and then next summer we redo the loop. So they'll do the very same thing on the loop itself. So it'll be
that'll be tough.
It'll be tough, but it's we see now how just coming over this morning as I exited, I had that same thoughts you did about how much better it is. So that, and then our normal city maintenance work, which a lot of it goes on in the summer because of the weather.
And I've seen that too.
Yeah. That is, and we'll do about $7 million of that in the year we're in right now, and another $7 million next year. We're working towards. We'd like to be able to do a little bit more of that. We want to be able to pay for it with cash, and so in the proposed budget, we've got about $7 million. But yeah, it's a lot of work going on with the roads. It's part of keeping up with our growth is not only building new roads, but you got to maintain what you have.
I also like the project along 19th Street, and I think you were a force in that one. The median project that is on 19th Street by Texas Tech. I think it's going to get landscaped. It looks like they were doing some drainage work, and that was always a really ugly concrete barrier there, and I think they're going to landscape that. Is that what the ultimate project's going to be?
That's right. It was previously concrete with weeds, as you remember. It was not really a great front door to to Texas Tech and to our city, and that's a project that TxDOT and Tech and the city are all in together. TxDOT's funding the work on it. Tech's role will be to they'll put in the plants. They're doing all the landscaping. It'll look a lot like what they've done on their campus. People have asked about trees. We won't have trees in there, but generally because of the safety issues with traffic. But we will have a native kind of plants.
Yeah, xeriscape.
Yeah. So and we're providing the water. The city is, so that we'll have drip irrigation. So we're not going to be sprinkling out on the road itself. We'll have drip irrigation. And then we'll take care of it. We'll maintain it. That will be our role going forward. So that we really would, had we not had the wet summer we've had, which we're thankful for that, we thought we'd be finished by the end of this week. We're probably now about 3 more weeks. Okay. Also, Tech, if you've noticed, is along with this is building a joint, what I think they call a joint use path, but they're building about a 10-foot wide path that'll run from University down 19th, from University all the way to Memphis.
Oh, so is that going to be a fence as well?
No, that's a path, and that'll be running. It'll be bike, walk, run. It's wide enough for
that's great.
And they'll landscape around that. It'll go all the way from 19th to Memphis, and then my understanding is it'll go back to the system building. So it'll make part of that old triangle that many of us used to run back in the day. And so that's what they're doing on that right now.
I might get this town. There's some things that we could be doing, and that's a really great start. This discount, there's a few things we could do that could be a lot cuter.
Yes.
Make the town a little cuter. I was really disappointed that a lot of the business owners along Avenue Q killed a median plan there. I thought that was a mistake. To this day, I think Avenue Q is I'm never going to get a listing there again, obviously. It's just not my favorite corridor. I think if the medians had been put in there, it would have helped that area a lot. But ultimately, business owners thought that they wouldn't be able to get in their businesses. I don't understand that at all, by the way, because people know how to U-turn. Yeah. So I'm disappointed in that. I always thought 34th Street. I'm very bullish on 34th Street. I wish we would have had some landscape medians there. I had businesses there. I wish we would have put it there, and I would have volunteered my property, put it there. I'm not going to be hypocritical, but I think there's some things we could do. I also noticed the other day that there's really no parks down south.
That's right.
There's some private parks. There's some private. I don't know if I'm allowed to use them or not. There's Vintage Township has their little playscapes and things, but there's no parks. So I'm wondering if we could look at those sort of things.
So let's talk about that's a great topic. So the beautification piece. First and foremost, Carl, we've got to do a better job of cleaning up after ourselves, and you're going to see us work. We're working right now to try on a plan to put maybe another team of inmates to work on trash collection. We're working on an option to put the homeless the ones that are willing to work, to put them to work and maybe helping us with some beautification kind of efforts. We've got, if just
good luck with that, but okay.
Yeah, but just in that, well, there's been some success. Albuquerque's had a little success doing it. We just have some hot spots. Avenue Q and Marcia Sharp. It's right there by the Walmart and by the community health center. We have real trash problems there. We just so that's number one. Number two is that I think as we continue to develop, we need to look at ways to in a smart way. Add some landscaping. We don't want to put fescue in that requires a lot of water and a lot of, I joke about my fescue's like a third child. Right. It takes that much effort. Finally, to your point about parks, we grew for years and had parks and if you look at the growth that happened really inside the loop, you have
the Playa Lakes made a nice natural park.
That's exactly right. And you had some larger regional parks and, one of the things that we've tasked our planning committee that's in 35 citizens that are working right now is we've got to have a strategy around parks. Most of the parks south of the loop are supported by PIDs.
Public improvement districts.
Right. So the neighbors in that area pay a little extra for that park. That's not completely the case. We have some developers that would like to help maybe give us some lands or help us put some trails in, some walking and running kind of trails in south of the loop, south and west. So those are things we're considering. But we need a plan. We need a strategy. We need to be able, when a developer comes to us, we need to be able to say, okay, we have this to some degree, but we've not been, I don't think we haven't been as assertive as we need to be. And we would say that, if you'll do this for parkland, here's what we expect, by the way, sort of our guidelines around that. If you'll dedicate this amounts to parkland and give it to us at this standard, then we'll maintain it. And that's the type of discussions I think we need to have.
You might have heard this. Randy Henson told me that over the years, the power lines around, I think around 103rd Street or something, I think he had had asked the developers to seed a lot of that underneath the power lines to the city with the concept that perhaps it would become a rails to trails type of thing. Right. I just wanted you to know, I don't know if Randy ever got to you about it, but that might be a nice path area. I've actually ridden horses, down Slide Road for some reason, miles down to Frankfort. And then I saw those power lines and came back within minutes. It was a very quick ride. You got to watch out for those prairie dog towns, but
I think it's a great idea. In fact, you're the second person to mention that to me in the last 3 weeks. I would love to find a way to take that dedicated space that's set aside for the power lines and to try to find paths that we could connect those areas. You've seen it in many other communities where they've used similar kind of
natural trails.
It's a similar kind of strategy, and I would like to think that'd be something that we might be able to get to.
Are we at that break yet, Jody? Go ahead and fire it off. We're going to talk about the new public safety plans going into the city and some of the facility issues. This is Carl Tepper and Mayor Dan Pope, and this is the Chad Hasty Show. This is Carl Tepper, Mayor Dan Pope. This is the Chad Hasty Show. Mayor Pope, let's get into something with a little more teeth. I read some of the public safety planning and some of the issues. I actually dealt with this as part of downtown redevelopment a little bit with Leanne Dunball when she was city manager. One of the problems we had was the try another one. We're trying to hook in the mayor here. One of the problems we had was the size of Citizens Tower was the Omni building, and we could never quite get a correct square footage. I think there was even a lawsuit over it once, so how big that building was, because the theory was we'd be able to consolidate some city departments in there and save a little money maybe on leases, and never quite was able to get there. Now, the previous city council, this city council, by the way, I'm for Citizens Tower becoming City Hall. I think it's just an obvious thing to do. I think in 10 years, we're going to think it was a brilliant thing to do. So, it's going to cost money, folks. Guess what? Yep, it's going to cost more money, but we're a city. We're almost bigger than Buffalo, New York now. I think we're bigger, actually. We're almost as big as Cincinnati, Ohio, at least the county. Yeah. And we're starting to see some of these issues. We're going to need a bigger city hall. Yeah. Now, I disagree with some issues. One is everyone keeps telling me what terrible condition the police headquarters is in. It's not my favorite building. I mean, when you go through it, there were some better parts of it. There's some parts that needed maintenance, maybe some new carpet. It's not leasable. There's no windows anywhere. It's awful. And you've got some jail cells that I guess it is used for storage.
Right.
So it's got its pluses and minuses. It's not falling apart, though. I wouldn't argue that. Do we need a new police headquarters? Probably need a bigger one. And I know they also want to put the satellite, what do they call it, substations?
Substations, yes.
So, but it also doesn't mean that the old police station headquarters can't be another city department. I'm not sure.
Or sold to, or the land sold to the private sector. I mean, I think that's an option too. So the plan, I appreciate your comments around Citizens Tower. That was an interesting one for us. That was done before I was elected, and our job was to execute it. I like the plan. I wish we could have voted on it, Carl. I mean, but we didn't, and that's neither here nor there on those bonds.
And I think that vote would have won.
I think it could have won too. I really do. And so the plan for public safety.
So consider this. I like Citizens Tower. Consider this. I think it should be a city hall. Consider this. I think it's going to be viewed as brilliant 10 years down the road, kind of like Lake Allen Henry and those the Loop and things like that. These things always cost a little more than everybody initially thought. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I appreciate you considering that. So the public safety plan is for 3 substations to be built. Roughly 10 to 12,000 square foot kind of facilities, generally one south or southwest, one north, and one east. Similar, the buildings would be identical. We would reap some of the efficiencies of figuring out how to build it and then do it 3 times, and so that would serve the community in a number of ways. First of all, it puts those police resources closer to the residents that they're protecting and serving. It's a much more efficient way of doing things. Most likely, the one in the southwest area we would build a detention facility along with it that we would own, and hopefully the county would run.
That's the stuff that costs a lot.
That's right. Yeah. We don't want to get in that business of running a jail. The county does it well, but if you, for instance, if we arrest someone at, let's say today at 114th and Slide, it takes that officer an inordinate amount of time to go all the way back, east of the airport where we take.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, these guys, and I'd like to thank Chief Stevens for taking me on a tour. They have roll call every morning, every night. There's a swing shift, there's a midnight shift. Right. So everyone goes downtown to police headquarters. It's a huge waste of.
It's like Hill Street Blues. You remember that? Be careful out there.
Be careful out there. And they need to have those meetings. They're important meetings, but we're not sure if they can't Skype them, do them at substations with their team. that sort of thing. And so it's a huge waste of time.
We've tested that. We've tested that out at one of the fire stations. I can't remember the number, the fire station southwest part of town where we've had our police doing their meetings there and seeing how it all works. But anyway, we'd build 3 police substations. We built a much smaller downtown administrative headquarters. So at one point they were talking about an 85,000 square foot building. We think it's about 40 to 45,000 square feet for downtown.
That and I read that last night. I'm glad it's shrinking, but that still seems a little small to me.
Well, and that's a good point. And we need to make sure that we don't build it too small. Yeah. I mean, even if we build it a little bigger and with some shell space, you're in the business, you understand the value of doing something like that. We need to it needs to be a 50-year decision. It doesn't need to be something that in 10 years we regret not doing it correctly. Or
at least buy a little extra land next to it that you can expand.
Completely agree. Hopefully we can do that. The downtown administrative headquarters and the east headquarters, we've identified at least tentatively some city-owned land that we already have. So
that's always nice.
So we're going to work around that. Then the sort of the 2 other pieces of that are the property warehouse. Today we call it a property room. It is just a series of rooms. I don't know if you've taken a tour of it.
I did. Yes.
It's
they're very organized. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, they are organized. It's remarkably.
It's very sad down there.
Yeah, I think there's some risk there. I mean, we have to maintain, as you know, we some evidence we have to maintain forever that are related to certain kinds of crimes. Then you've got the weapons, drugs, and money that have to be securely stored. But you've got to be able to access that property for trials for those type things. And we truly have some old trash cans, which we store certain kind of things that we've picked up over the years. And it's very difficult anyway, that needs to be redone. We're going to take our plans to take the old animal services facility off Municipal Hill, sort of across from Meadowbrook, and repurpose that for a property warehouse. And the final piece is municipal court, which that's the other piece that's in the square today, the old municipal square. And we've got to find a home for municipal court.
The prosecutors are in there, isn't that right? The city.
Uh-huh. That's right. That's where Judge Hernandez and the prosecutors. That's where you go pay your tickets. I mean, that's the sort of the other side from the police station.
I've got a different perspective. I'm always a little afraid. That's a little unfair that they have relationships with the police. And the judge has relationships because they see each other every day. They're all parking around each other, and then suddenly I'm up against them, and I don't have that relationship. I think they should.
I think there's reason to separate it. I think that's part of our thought.
This is Carl Tepper and Mayor Dan Pope. Wow, I got a lot of your time for a mayor. You're a busy guy. Carl Tepper and Mayor Dan Pope. This is the Chad Hasty Show. I wanted to go into some because
Carl, Chad had me on a bunch during the election, but he hadn't had me back. So I'm just glad to get an invite. So it's good to be back.
That's good. You get to answer some of the questions and some of the. I love criticizing politicians, but you also have to. I've been there, kind of been there, done that. When all you get is criticism all the time, and so. First of all, you have to let them respond on occasion, and you got to give credit where credit is due on occasion too. Right now, the city's running very efficiently, very effectively. So do we have people down there at Hurricane Harvey relief? What's going on?
We do. We the first group we sent down were some instant management, the folks that are trained in those type things. There's 4 of those, 3 firefighters and 1 chief code officer they're deployed in Houston. One's at a large staging area in Katy, where the state's accumulating and dispatching assets.
What's the code off? Is the code officer giving tickets for too much watering?
No, he's actually trained in this, so he's not doing code. He's not writing tickets today. Good question. We also have a 4-man crew in a TIFMAS engine. That's that special fire engine with the big tires. It's actually paid for by the State Forest Service, and we get to use it other than when they need it. So they called it in, and it's being used for actually it was routed to Beaumont yesterday. We have 10 members of 11 total. We have 10 LPD assets down there, 9 officers and a supervisor. They're generally working in sheltering operations. They're last update I got, they were in downtown Houston. We sent our a shallow water boat down earlier this week, and they diverted it to Beaumont, Port Arthur. It's a 4-man crew. Those are 2 PD Marine officers and 2 firefighters.
Been commissioned by the Cajun Navy.
Cajun Navy. There you go. We also have a flight medic that's a Lubbock Fire and Rescue person who's part of a team that's been called down there for medical evacuation. So we have about 25 people, 16 vehicles down there, including the boat.
Yeah, good.
We don't think we'll go much more than that right now. We're preparing crews to go down and take their place. That would be the next effort. You remember we've got a football game Saturday. So that requires a lot of off-duty assets for us. We've got to manage that. We've got to manage a long holiday weekend. So first and foremost, it's Lubbock. Take care of our people here, but then we want to be a good neighbor. And I'm proud of our guys. I'm proud of not only our employees, but I'm really proud of our city and the way they've, come up. You're part of the Salvation. You're involved in the Salvation Army. I had lunch with Mayor Martin yesterday. We talked a bit about this Salvation Army. You've got Red Cross. You've got the food bank. You've got businesses and schools and churches all stepping up. I just encourage people to work to coordinate. Let's work through Salvation Army. Let's work through the Red Cross. Let's work through the food bank. The food bank is got all kinds of information on their website, and really, folks, the thing that's most needed right now is cash. When you're at United, when you're at Lowe's, add $1, $5, $10, $20 to your bill. They've got the ability.
Are they doing that right now?
They're set up. They're doing it. Lowe's is doing it all over. I believe as of late yesterday, all over the state in their stores. Any United store so that's from Albuquerque to the Metroplex. Any of those stores that you can do it in their stores.
So once again, in case you missed it at the beginning of the show, we're going to open up 4 of the Salvation Army kettles because we need cash. We're hemorrhaging cash.
There you go. Awesome.
At the Red Raider Outfitters stores. There's 4 of them at the mall next to Specs and behind Chick-fil-A on Slide Road. 1 on University across from the stadium, and 1 on Broadway, which is the one I usually go to.
Right.
And 1 on Broadway. I'll be manning if you're mad at the mayor or me, or if I was too mean to the mayor, I'll be at University at 5 to 7 tonight, and you give me a piece of your mind, but it has to come with the check that goes in the kettle. Okay?
Where are you going to be on University?
I'm going to be on. I forgot the address. Right across from Jones AT&T Stadium, next to where Firehouse Subs is.
Yeah, right
or
there.
where Firehouse used to be.
Yeah. Okay. So down about 6th and University.
Right.
Then. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, and things continue to evolve in that regard, but I'm awful proud of our folks. I'm reminded of something that sits in my office that there's not many things that were in my office when I walked in 15, 16 months ago, but one of them is a brown glass bottle from the Pearl Brewery. And in 1970, after the hurricane, Pearl took those bottles that they normally put beer in, and they put water in them and shipped them to Lubbock, Texas. I saw this morning on CNBC that the Budweiser's doing a similar kind of thing right now with water. But people helped us in 1970. That help was not just from West Texas. It was from around the state and around the country. We weren't as aware of it because of the differences in that day and time. But Lubbock people are not I people. They're we people. It's we. We can do this. We're humble people, and we care. And I think this is a great example of that. And it's for me, it's a great opportunity to just help lead the band. And I'm very proud of our people.
People are they're dying to help, and it's been such a weird. They have such devastation within our state. It's not like it's New York or Washington State or something. It's here in Texas, the other end of the state, where, of course, we're bigger than France, but the weather here has been beautiful.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
it's been hard to grasp the devastation down just a few hours away, and what an amazing fall and late summer we've been having.
Yeah, in fact, ours is probably a little too nice. We probably need a little more.
I feel guilty.
We need a little more heat to get that cotton to finish that cotton off. But it's when you wake up to 57 or 58 degrees in August, all you want to do is call somebody in San Antonio and remind them of how great our weather is. Yeah. But right now
we do want to remind everyone, don't just we know you really want to help, and God bless you for doing so, but don't just show up down there. Yeah. They're having a lot of trouble with that. If you're not part of the solution, you'd quickly become part of the problem.
Yeah, in fact we had even some of our city assets that they've requested in sometimes takes 18 hours to get them deployed just because of the the madness. I
a lot of times they have to have their own stuff. I mean, you don't want to become a sponge for the assets they're trying to use down there. That's so if you're going to show up down there, you probably need your own water because they're trying to use the water to help the people who live there, you know. So there's only so many motel rooms, hotel rooms. You better be ready to camp out. And I would recommend you get with one of the services who are good at this, the Red Cross, Salvation Army, Samaritan's Purses. There's a few different ones. And these things, I know it's boring, not very sexy, but the biggest thing these groups need is just cash, folks.
That's right.
So
exactly
get out there and do it that way. I am very proud of Lubbock. No argument for me. If they need an asset, get it down there. And also, everyone be reminded that a lot of these firefighters work a shift.
That's right.
Then they're off for 2, and then they work a shift. A lot of them are maybe getting overtime. Maybe some of them, I wouldn't be surprised, are volunteering their time to go down there and do these things. So, this mayor's pretty normal guy. Lubbock is protected. We're very good at policing ourselves as well. And I'm certain that the assets that we have down there are useful and are not taking anything away from us. And so,
and by the way,
I for one, I'm very glad that the city is.
I am too. And somebody asked me if we get paid back, and I said I didn't really know, so I checked into it. And we will. It'll take a couple of years. It's got to run through the federal process, but we will get reimbursed for this. But we're paying our guys that are down there. We think that's the appropriate thing to do. But just know that Lubbock's involved.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's very appropriate. I'm going to. We had a break. One more segment. Can you hang around?
Yeah, I got about 10 more minutes.
We'll give him 10 more minutes. This is Carl Tepper, Mayor Dan Pope. This is the Chad Hasty Show. This is the Chad Hasty Show. This is Carl Tepper, Mayor Dan Pope, having a good time during the break. Mayor Pope, you and I disagree. We agree. I didn't like Senate bill. Was it 4, the tax bill? Which was the one that died?
It was originally 2, and then it came back as a different number in the special session, but Senate Bill 2, I believe.
You hated it. You liked local control. I hated it. I didn't think it went far enough because I've had to deal with some terrible reappraisals. When I was in Austin, I had some buildings get reappraised. I had 53% in 1 year. It's incredible. Yeah. Maybe it was worth that. I don't know. But triple net lease, you're familiar with that stuff. I had to build these little companies back, and it was hurting. We had to make payment plans and everything. I've gotten to know the Lieutenant Governor a little bit, and I've always beaten him up on this. We have caps on our homesteads. We have used to be 10%. Is it 8% now? I can't remember.
I believe it's 8%.
The appraisal cap.
I can't recall.
And
10, it may be 10. I can't tell you the number.
This gets in the weeds, folks. The appraisal is the appraisal. I mean, we know what it's worth, but they factor the calculation on your property tax off of a different calculation based on that cap. And my house in Austin hit that 10% cap every year, by the way. So like 30% increase in 3 years. Commercial property would have huge increases. I always felt that they should we already have a system in place. Why wouldn't they just lower the appraisal cap on residential property or your homestead to 5% and all the other rental and commercial property and introduce a cap, maybe 20% or 10%, just something to add stability to the system. I think
something like that, by the way, would
you like that better?
I think I would.
You?
Yeah. I think that to me makes more sense than the other side in the way, because, we talked about it a lot. I do think that we're elected to make those decisions locally. I understand the reason why it was important. I do understand the growth that you've seen in some in Harris County and in some different parts of the state, and I understand where the outcry comes from. I think we've been very responsible in that regard. I really was surprised that it didn't get done. I felt like we would end up at 6. I always thought that it was 8.
It was because it was 4 and then 6. So obviously they'd go to 5
or 5
between the House and the Senate.
Excuse me, 5. I thought it would end up a compromise, and which to me, we've sort of lost the art of that, unfortunately. And I think that would have been we could have lived. So with that.
Do you think? So just like we just talked about, do you think because the citizens of Texas have been screaming about their property tax and their values. They feel like they're being edged out of their home. They're renting them. Maybe it's a little extreme, but And of course, the municipalities are also always struggling with their budgets. Of course, everybody always says, well, there's something you kind of hear in there. Maybe, maybe not. But is there a solution? Is there a middle road or a property tax cap? I mean, it just seems that the Texas Municipal League, the Association of Counties, just any change to the property tax just goes straight to the missiles to stop that stuff. Is there a solution? Maybe that group of mayors you are working with could say we would consider this instead, and maybe work with the legislature.
Yes, it's a really it's a good point. First of all, I think we're very different than those big cities, and that was our conversation with the governor when I met with him along with the mayors of Amarillo and El Paso. And he agreed with that very much so, and he applauded our conservative leadership. The mayor of El Paso is a Republican, which is somewhat
kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it is, because 70% of the 70% of the citizens are Democrats. So, I think that
careful.
No, I think here's where I am on this. I wish TML, and I've told this to TML. I wish TML better represented some of us that were not Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. I think, and I understand where their bread's buttered, and I understand it's for them. They made it an all or none kind of thing. There were places that they were willing to negotiate, and I do believe that in this regard, the firefight between the cities and the legislature doesn't do any of us any good.
It was bad.
It was.
It really split the state.
And I think it reflects poorly on the cities that take care of business, that run things in a conservative fashion. And I think there are a number of us that do that. So hopefully between now and the next session, we can mend some of those fences. That would be my hope, is that we could do that. I would
just beg of everyone to look at a different approach. Something needs to give. Like I said, 10% every year, or maybe they've lowered it to 8%. But you buy a home, you have a budget, you always break the budget, and then the utility bills are higher than you thought they were going to be, and every other thing. And the taxpayers need a break every once in a while too. So
I agree, and I'm a taxpayer just like you are, and just like our citizens are. Remember that on average around the state, the municipal tax makes up less than 20% of somebody's property tax bill. In Lubbock, it's about 23, 20.
And that's always a good point that gets lost. I mean, most of it's the school board.
In Lubbock, it's between 23 and 26%, depending on which district you live in. We got 3 districts, so it'll be a little different. But we rely so heavily on property tax to fund everything we do in this state, Carl. And so I think the discussion is, when we talk about property tax and caps and all that goes along with that, is maybe it's a bigger discussion about is that the very best way to generate that revenue, and that's above my pay grade. I know that Senator Duncan was a proponent years of a statewide type property tax. I know that it got a little bit of sniff around that this year, but I don't know where we end up on that.
We got a break. I should have given you more time on this one, because I think there's a solution. I just think we need to work better at working together.
I agree. I just want to thank.
Legislate.
I want to make sure I thank our legislative delegation, Senator Perry, Representatives Frulo and Burrows, for their work. They did good work. They helped us a lot. They all 3 did different things for us, but we could count on them. They were responsive, and our citizens need to know that. I appreciate your time,
Mayor.
today.
Great job. Thank you very much, Mayor Dan Pope. And this is Carl Tepper. This is the Chad Hasty Show.